Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Winners Ways podcast. This is where we talk about your finance, your career, and we give you motivation to help you excel. Today we have a special guest with us. We have Emmanuel Daniel joining us today. And with Emmanuel today, we are going to be talking about entrepreneurship. We will talk about finance as well. And we are going to be talking about alternative assets for those of you looking for opportunity to diversify your portfolio. So Emmanuel is a great resource. He has built his business ground up, and he owns his business. He's a business owner with locations around the world. Without keeping you guys waiting any further, I'm going to bring in my guest, Emmanuel. Hey, Emmanuel, how are you?
Vola, great to be on your show and on your program. I watched a couple of them where you deal with entrepreneurship issues. It's something very close to my heart, and then of course there's my book that I've just written on the future of finance. So looking forward to our conversation.
Awesome. So I like that. I like to talk about entrepreneurship, as you rightly mentioned. And we are going to start. Maybe that will be the first question. So, Emmanuel, what is entrepreneurship? How would you define an entrepreneur?
Bola, when I started the Asian Banker in 1996, but before I started the Asian Banker, I started life wanting very badly to be a lawyer. And when on the day that I graduated as a lawyer, funnily enough, the scales fell off my back, and that's what I didn't want to be. And then I went on a 10-year journey working, in consulting and management consulting, business consulting, stuff like that, which gave me a front seat view of working with decision makers on how they strategize their business, strategize transformation, stuff like that. But I was an employee in a consulting firm, so you are in the learning phase of that evolution. Um, then eventually I realized that I had so many original ideas running around in my head that I was a bad employee, and I realized that that somewhat I had to start something of my own. Otherwise, I had too much energy to be straitjacketed in the corporate setting and rising up the corporate ladder. Um, and I find it difficult to explain this because also I did not come from a family of entrepreneurs. My parents were civil servants. They were government employees, and they understood how it was to work in a predictable environment. And here I was taking a journey, following my heart, and not really knowing where this was taking me. And the business that I eventually started was a very humble magazine called The Asian Banker. And the magazine trade gives you one amazing privilege, which is, in my case, because I focused on banking, I would get off a plane in any country across the Asia Pacific region, and bankers would want to tell me their story. And because I had the consulting background, I was also collecting not just stories, but data on the stories, which are then repackaged into research and then eventually into consulting, benchmarking, and so on. So we are a strategic research resource for the banking industry. And why banking? Because I sort of played around the idea of doing government or pharmaceuticals or all kinds of different large industries. But banking was wonderful for me because in parts of Asia, if you wrote about government, sometimes you get thrown into jail and stuff like that at that time.
Yeah.
So but banking was neutral. It was perception neutral. But every country had a banking system, and banking is what I call a cathedral industry. You enter any city, there's a bank right there in the center of the city alongside a cathedral or a church. mosque or something like that. So, and banking is something which all of us need from cradle to grave, cathedral industry. That's how I defined it in my head. And through that process, in the last 27 years, 28 years, I've had a front seat view of the economic progress of many different countries. And especially in Asia, there were countries that grew at a breakneck speed, between 5% per annual GDP growth per annum to 15% GDP growth per annum. And then seeing how entire societies get transformed because of the infrastructure, of the financial infrastructure that was at the back end of the economic growth. And then I get to meet central bank regulators and so on. So that's been my journey. And then, of course, eventually, when I wanted to, diversify out of banking, I started another title called Wealth and Society, which had to do with philanthropies. And that was an excuse to meet ultra high net worth individuals who are also an institution in many countries, even in the US, which is alongside big business, financial institutions, ultra high net worth individuals, and the state. And that's how I see all of the different players juxtaposing against each other and shaping society. So my overall theme, the overall theme at the back of my mind is how society itself is evolving. But I've used very simple platforms to run a business, to have a livelihood, and then still be able to capture, the story of nations. And the funny thing is this, that we eventually grew into Dubai for the Middle East and in Africa. And we run programs in Nigeria and in South Africa. And I remember about 9 years ago when I first went into Nigeria, the Nigerians asked me, what are you going to call the Asian banker in Nigeria? And then I thought about it for a second and I said, the Asian banker, get used to it, like I didn't have an answer for him. But then I realized that when you grow a business, it's really nothing to do with the name of the business. You could call it the color purple. Firstly, it's about turning up. I think, Woody Allen said that 90% of life is turning up. And secondly, it's about gaining the trust of the community that you are, confronted with.
Yeah.
And after you get the trust of the community, the income shows up on your balance sheet, which is we are making money from this community regardless of what we are called, because we are providing them with something of value, and they want to interact with us. So that was my experience in branding, in building relationships, and in expanding a proposition across different geographies around the world.
So let me ask you this. What is it about your career in consulting that motivated you to want to start your business, and which you did many years ago? Well, and I know you said you had the opportunity of interacting with decision makers, right? So what led you to starting your business?
Yeah, so that's what I was that I mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, which was that what made me make the transition from being an employee into being an entrepreneur and starting my business. I can't put my finger on it, but I think being a misfit, a corporate misfit, has a lot to do with it. And survivor, and desire to be on the top of the pile, meaning that I want to decide where I want to go. I don't want to allow anyone else to shape my decisions, except that after you've built a viable corporation of your own, you don't want to see a second person with the same attitude in your own corporation. You need people who are reliable, and who would take instructions and build it, and who can work in teams and keep to schedules and stuff like that. So I see myself as a unique individual who needs that freedom to create, and then I need a team to make it into a predictable experience.
So, thank you. In your opinion, what does it take to start a business? Because I don't know if there are A, B, C, or 1, 2, 3 steps of starting a business, if there is anything like that. If you can share with us, let's say someone out there listening to you today, and this person is interested in starting his own business, what are the steps that you will recommend to this person that he should take in order to start that business?
I think the first thing about starting any business is all of us should do what we like to do most. We should do something that we enjoy, that defines us, that we do not consider to be work, but a passion. And that is the first and most crucial defining character of anyone who starts a business. And from that, everything else flows, including the infectiousness of your passion, that your second in command, your third in command, your last employee looking at you from far away can capture, which is that this person is passionate about what he or she has chosen to do, and making a difference in society. And it can even be making a difference in a local community. It doesn't have to be the whole world. It can be, the place where you live in, or the community that you have a responsibility to. So the single most important first principle is you're doing what you're passionate about. And whether it becomes monetizable, whether it's commercializable, is the second point. And those of us who are entrepreneurs will figure it out. That how do we make money from it? How does it pay the bills? And how do we become wealthy as a result of what we do? So it's just as simple as that. Start with focusing on what you're.
Okay. So you have a book out, The Great Transition, and you talked about the future of finance. What do you mean by the future of finance?
Let me just get the book out for you. The Great Transition. I have it with inside, but anyway, the Great Transition, the future of finance. Actually, can I just get the book out in a second?
Absolutely. Yeah. Go ahead and get it.
Okay, here we go. So I wrote this book, The Great Transition, The Future of Finance. It's a culmination of everything that I've experienced in running a banking research company. And it's a struggle of my own story in understanding how the transition in finance will take place. Now, when you run a business in any area, whether it's pharmaceuticals or engineering or airlines or in my case, finance, after a period of time, you become embedded in the industry. You understand the DNA of how the industry works, and you are well networked in the community of that industry. Now, then the industry itself is undergoing a transformation. And the people who are incumbents in the industry, many of them cannot accept the transition that the industry is going through. And that's where someone who's an entrepreneur and someone who provides a service in the industry needs to stand outside the industry, looking back into it and being neutral about understanding where the transition is taking us. And I also have this incredible moment in time where I've built a business over a 27-year period, and I've reached a point where I now can start pontificating. I can start philosophizing. I can start, imagining where this industry is going. In fact, that's a very important role for somebody who's been in the industry for a long time, who stands outside the industry looking in. And that's the motivation for writing this first book, which is the Great Transition. So what I'm saying in this book is that the finance industry is in a great transition from its institutional model to its personalization model. And it's being assisted by the technology itself, which today, a lot of what's possible in digital finance or the digital economy is predicated or defined by the platform economy. And what I'm saying in the book is that the platform economy is itself being disintegrated to become highly personalized. And when that happens, a number of assumptions in finance starts to need to be attended to, especially the role of banks and financial institutions as intermediaries. So the question is, at which point will the intermediary nature of finance start to crumble, and what will it be replaced by? So that's the nature of the book. So the book is part a journey and part a service that someone who is dispassionate looking back into the industry can provide the industry that he serves.
So, what are some examples of personalization that you are seeing towards that great transition that you talked about?
So the cover of my book has an ice cube on it.
Yes.
And so I use that as a simple allegory in order that people understand what I mean by personalization. If you talk to a traditional banker, he'll tell you personalization means when we wrap up a traditional mortgage product into a manner that looks so personalized for that customer, and the customer loves you because he thinks that you love him.
Yeah.
The problem with that thinking is that customers never wanted a mortgage. They wanted a home. They never wanted an automobile loan. They wanted a car, a sports car they can drive and show off. So finance is always a means to an end. It's not an end in itself. So the way in which bankers think of personalization, they pay too much emphasis. They give too much importance to their own role in society. The personalization that I'm talking about is far more profound. That's being driven by technology, which is that you and I are gaining greater control of what we have as finance. So when we use the ice analogy, there's a time when ice used to be something sawn out of the lakes of Michigan or Boston and then put on horse-drawn carriages and then sent out to the other cities. Can you imagine how much wastage there is in that process? And that's exactly what the ice industry was in the 1750s, right into the early 20th century. And finance is exactly that now. The money that you have in your pocket would have swirled around the world twice, been subject to inflation, exchange rates, trade, and bank charges and risk, and all kinds of values that shrinks the value of money and puts it outside the control of the individual. And because of the token economy, you and I today can create our own token of value and put it out there and see how it will be accepted or whether your counterparties will want to transact in it. Of course, the first cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, and so on, are the most defined of these tokens. But something that people don't understand is that it's not that Bitcoin went up to $65,000. It's the fact that every one of us can create our own tokens. So with that possibility that exists in the world, I look around and see communities that could have created their own tokens for interacting within a community, for creating value and transacting them, and how that will change society going forward.
So, in other words, people are more empowered to create their own currency. If you want to reference Bitcoins and all other cryptos, so that's important. Now, let's talk about some lessons that you have learned as an entrepreneur. What are the crucial ones that you want to share with us.
Lessons that I've learned as an entrepreneur. I think the lesson number one is your single most important asset as an entrepreneur is not the money, but the people that you work with. In fact, I've said this about key employees that I have who eventually have become directors in my own company. And I said, if God gave me, this employee and he gave me $1 million, I would have been a fool to have taken the $1 million. And the reason is that when you build a business, and especially a business like mine, which is capital intensive, intellectual intensive business, if you are building a manufacturing plant, sure, your equipment and your manufacturing infrastructure is as important as the people that you work with. But in my business, it's all people and their ability to process information. So. And in all businesses, the people are far more important than capital. So I think that that would be the single most important lesson or rather emphasis that I have learned to make. And then subsequent to that is, how do I treat people? How do I bring out the best in them? How do I take ordinary people and make them extraordinary? So these are some of the lessons that I've had to learn over a long period of time.
Oh, that's good. People and how you treat people, those are very important. So, Emmanuel, as we are wrapping up this interview, I want to hear from you in terms of maybe your next steps. What do you have planned going forward with this personalization of finance? What are you going to be focusing on?
Well, on the business front, I'm not a big fan of although I've written a book and I'm asking to be taken seriously worldwide, I'm not a big fan of things like vlogging or promoting yourself overtly. I am my way of creating value is to be able to secure maybe 5 or at the most 10 financial institutions and being mentors to them and working with them at a very grassroots level to help them realize their goal and their dreams. Now, that kind of approach enables me to put to test this big 30,000 feet ideas that I've been explaining to you. And I have a few of those clients, and I'm very happy with them. And also, I'm at the age where I do perform a very important role as a mentor to individuals, whether they're CEOs or CFOs, and also entrepreneurs on the fintech side, which is financial technology players, not just the banks, but financial technology players who are being funded by venture capitalists, and the range of issues that they face: technology, the banking or financial services industry, and then the venture capitalist, and scaling the business, and also going cross border and so on. So because of these real life issues that they face, instead of being consultant, which will be to try and solve operational problems, I try to be more of a mentor, where I work with the business owners to work out their own journey in the same way that I've worked out my own journey.
Okay, that's good. So where can my audience find you so that they can connect with you and continue to learn from you?
Yeah, so the easiest way is my blog, which is Emmanuel Daniel, my name in one word, .com. I've actually put the information on the book right there on that page, and from there there are some new writings which reflect what I've been learning from having written this book and the feedback that I've been getting, and I'll be very happy to interact with your audience on this platform.
All right. Thank you very much, Emmanuel, for your time. We greatly appreciate it. And that's where we are wrapping it. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.